What up? Welcome back to another episode of Roll Call with Chappy. As usual, I got surprises for you. My man, Shaun T. I don't even know all the stuff you do, so you got to tell him about all the different things you do. But I've been following you since my prison days, actually, back 10, 15 years ago. So it is a pleasure having you here. I know you had the #1 infomercial on TV for 7 years in a row. So
Yes.
Do me a favor, introduce yourself, tell a guest everything else you do. And I just want to get into the story of how Mr. Shaun T became Shaun T.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can talk to you, but I'll talk to them.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up? My name is Shaun T. People know me from Insanity, hip-hop ads. People know me as fitness. I like to call myself a fitness motivator and your biggest fan. Because I think sometimes with fitness, people just look at you as, you know, a specimen. And there's no depth to that. And you know me, like I have a bunch of tattoos. One of my tattoos says dig deeper. And it's just not, that doesn't just pertain to fitness, it pertains to life. Like I like to dig deeper in people's lives and really help transform people. But I'll tell you the surface of my story and then we can get into it. But yeah, like in 2005, I got connected to a company called Beachbody. And prior to that, I was traveling around the world. I had won awards in group exercise. I was teaching fitness on every continent and like, not every continent, but lots,
Almost.
all around the world, yeah. And different fitness conventions, and it was really a spectacular experience. So when I eventually moved to Los Angeles, which is a whole story in itself,
Yeah.
I was teaching class at Equinox, and my classes were just really packed, and so I got connected to this production company, and they were like, do you want to shoot some workout videos? I'm like, yeah, you know. I thought it was just going to be like, you know, something short term and something fun, but it turned
Or a little
into-
side gig on top of what you're doing.
Yeah, but I mean, we're 20 years later, and yeah, and here we are. And so I'm a husband, a dad, you know, a podcaster, an author, and I'm still, to this very day, releasing fitness programs just to really help people dig deeper mentally and physically.
Yeah, there's very few dudes I would say that's actually busier than me, but you are definitely one of those guys. You don't have an off button, right?
You know, it's so funny. I'm trying to create the off button. I think balance is key. And, you know, being right at 45 years old, my energy level's still the same, but I'm maximizing my energy and becoming more efficient in my life, which is what I love to tell people to try and do. But yes, I'm very, very busy. But I really balance it out. Like I just got done filming for a month for my new workout T25 Delta round. And then I immediately went on a 2-week vacation because I was just like, am I just gonna like beat myself up or am I gonna, you know, find balance in my life and take a vacation? And we're filming this on the very last day of my vacation and people were like, you're really gonna work on your last day of vacation? I'm like, yo, being with Peter is not work. I'm like, it's like I'm hanging out with my boy. So
Absolutely.
this is kind of a celebratory moment for me.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I'm grateful for you as a friend and then just to know you. So how was like childhood for you? Were you always into fitness and then did you have a good upbringing at home?
Very interesting question. So I got a funny story when it comes to
Please.
fitness. So I was always an athlete at
Okay.
heart, you know. It was just what we did, you know, playing around. But my first year going to football practice, my mom was like, you know, do you want to play football? I'm like, absolutely. You know, I was like game for it. I was ready. And, you know, we had got all of our pads. You know, we were all ready. I remember getting dressed to go to practice. And I get out of the car. And it just happened to be like the 13-year-olds were practicing right at the street where we got dropped off. And I was 5. So 13-year-olds when you're 5 are huge. And I turned around and I got back in the car. I was
Good on
like,
this?
I'm absolutely not doing this. Because no one told me that I was going to be with kids my age, you know.
For sure.
So I sat out the first year, but I watched my brother play, and I realized, like, oh, he's playing with kids, you know, his size. And then the next year I went and I started playing football. Then, you know, I kind of continued my sport, ended up being track and field.
Okay.
But as
What'd
far
you run
as-
in track? If you don't mind
I
asking?
was a 400-meter hurdler.
Gotcha.
Yes.
I did the 400 in track.
I was a 400-meter hurdler and a 4x4 anchor leg. I also ended up running in college. But to answer your question in full, my childhood sucked. It was the worst. It was
Really?
absolutely horrible. It was the only reason why I'm happy that my childhood existed is because it literally, you know, I literally was able to turn my struggle into strength, into who I am today. Because it was literally for me, the worst that it could possibly be.
Talk about that a little bit too, because like I said, I always say this. There's a lot of people that look at you right now and think you've had it all. You probably had a silver spoon, and just like you've had it made your whole life as a kid. So
Yeah.
you're saying it wasn't like that. So tell me, like, what was rough about your childhood? Because there's a lot of people that are living that rough childhood right now and think that there's no way out. And look, clearly there's a way out.
Yeah, and it definitely before I get into the story, it definitely feels like there's no way out. And that feeling is valid and that feeling is true. But just like what I love to tell people, I'm like, just hold on, try to hold on as long as you can. And if you have the opportunity to get help. But for me, it was a rough childhood. I was sexually abused from the time I was 8 to the time I was 12.
Ouch.
I would literally be in my bedroom at 2 o'clock in the morning, and my stepfather, who I like to call my step monster, in my book I call him my step monster, would just come in. And I'm very graphic, so you can edit any of this out, but
yeah.
I like to make people feel uncomfortable
For sure.
because there are people out there who actually are going through this and they're afraid to say what's happening to
For
them.
sure.
But I would be asleep in my bed, and he would come in, he would start rubbing my butt, and then turn me over, and it would just be a whole thing. And this was literally from the time I was 8 to the time I was 12, and he ended up stopping when I was able to
Defend yourself for the most part?
when I actually had an orgasm. So he was a true definition of a pedophile.
Wow.
And those 4 years of my life were like incredibly tough, and I spent years and years and years and years and years and years in therapy. So I figured out to now, in the last couple of years, I've been able to really talk about it and dissect it and really connect it to the struggles that I had as I was growing up, the struggles that I had in the beginning of my relationship, my struggles with accepting love, and most importantly, my struggle with accepting myself and the barriers that happen because of that experience.
Wow, that is insane, buddy. And it's crazy, like, I feel like almost half my guests, and not to diminish and make it seem smaller, but it happens so often now. We got to put an end to this too, because I mean, I would say almost half my guests have had somewhat of the same stories. You know, it's being molested by a pedophile or whatever the case may be. 8 to 12, those are your shaping years as a kid. So 13 years, when you're 13 years old, what goes on then? And are you like heading down a bad path? Are you mad at God? Are you mad at the world or your mom? What are your thoughts back then? Do you remember?
This is so crazy, and I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this, but so for me, when you are sexually abused, and my reason for not telling anyone was one, because of fear, and that fear was I need to protect my family because this person was an alcoholic, like he was abusive to my mom. So I'm like, if I can take the brunt of this, then I'm protecting my entire family. And so, and this is where it gets really crazy and really uncomfortable for people. But so psychologically, I took on a role of, okay, I dove so deep into accepting that this was happening to me. Actually, when he stopped doing it, it was like very synonymous with my first heartbreak. Because I feel like I took on all this, like I didn't tell anybody, and all of a sudden you just want to stop. So like that's another mind fuck right there. You know what I mean? So
Not to cut you off, but did it make you feel unwanted or anything?
Absolutely.
Wow, how
Like,
sick is that?
No. So that's why people don't understand the psyche behind like the depth of this. You know, you say it happens to a lot of people. It happens to a lot of people, and one, it happens to a lot of people because these people are horrible people that want to do it. Secondly, people like me and the victims are, I don't consider myself a victim anymore, but at the time I was, are afraid to tell. And third, and this is really bad, there are people in people's families that knows this happened and they rather protect the family name than care about the mental wellness of the child that it's going through. And people like to brush it under the rug. That's why even in my relationship with my husband right now, we have zero secrets. Like, it's just like I can help fix or change or talk through any struggle, but what we can't do, and you actually said this before we started the show.
That's when you said that.
Keeping secrets
Secrets will kill you.
Secrets will kill you. And that's secrets kill relationships. And, you know, and a lot of people who have suffered the way that I've suffered are now in prison.
For sure.
They are now, because they weren't able to get the help. And a lot of those people definitely went and told a family member, and and you asked me about religion, because the church, because people pray this stuff away, it's like, oh, we're gonna pray it away, we're gonna ask God for forgiveness. And I get it, like I definitely understand that. So I'm not gonna hate on people's religion, but that doesn't work for the mental health of a child.
Absolutely.
And you're in your most vulnerable years of growth. You mean to tell me, like, you want me to go to school, you want me to retain all this information of math and science and history and social ability and social skills, but this other thing is happening to me, and it's like, oh, you want me to brush this under the rug, and we want me to pray this away. And so you said, how do we end this? I'm not being negative, but I don't think you will be able to end it. You will probably be able to lessen it, because there are still
For sure.
people out there today that are protecting the family name rather than protecting the child. And that just is what it is.
Yeah. So did you have faith in God at that time or no?
Yeah, so I grew up in church. My grandfather, so I'll tell you, I turned 14, and I just remember, like, that's when I kind of came out of this, like, being in love with my abuser and realizing that this is a toxic environment. And so I moved out of my house at 14 years old. Yeah, I just was like, I'm out, whatever. So I wanted to run away, but I ended up going to live with my grandparents because, I was just like, I have to devise a plan to get out of
If you
here.
don't mind me asking, what was your mom saying at this time? Did she know what was going on?
No one knew.
Okay.
Like, I want to
So
say,
you just
like,
made an excuse why you want to get out of the house and go stay with your grandparents?
no, I think that, like for my mom, like, she was being abused. Like, he was an alcoholic. So
You guys were all held captive.
I think in my mom's headspace, she's like, if one of my kids wants to leave this environment and actually be in a better place, that's one less person that's going to be.
She was probably thinking in the same role that you thought you were thinking too.
She probably wanted to get out of it too. I definitely held a lot of resentment toward her for a very long time.
I was going to say, and if you don't mind, not on a fast track, but how did you get over that?
For me, it was all about me. It was all about me dealing with it, because it's easy and it's valid for someone to be, upset with their parent or blame their parent because they're supposed to be their protector. Mm-hmm. It is valid. Your reasons, the way that you feel is 100% authentic and real. But as I got older and I started to understand what relationships were and how people struggled, I looked at my mom, instead of looking at her from a child's perspective, I looked at her from an adult perspective and seeing everything that she went through. And so here we go. Like, my brother had a twin. My brother's 1 year older than me. He had a twin. His twin passed away 3 months. However, the point of this whole thing is even the inception of my mom and my biological father's relationship just wasn't good. So there was this like snowball effect of just negativity and choice making. And my mom was forced to marry my biological father because that's what the church said to do. So then, you know what I'm saying? So this is like,
You had every reason in the world to end up like where I did.
yeah,
And
dude.
some.
My grandparents, man. Like, even though I'm not anywhere near religious like I was today, I still pray, but I pray to my grandparents because they completely saved my life. And in the church they talk about being born again. So for me, I remember leaving my house when I was 14 and moving in with my grandparents, and I remember the first night I was just bawling. Like, it was bedtime, I was bawling. My grandparents ran in the room and they got down, they started praying for me. And in the church, it's like, to be saved, you have to be born again, accept Jesus Christ as your personal savior. For me, that was my born again moment, just to be able, like, it was a moment where I felt free. Yes, I had to go to church like 4 and 5 times a week.
For sure.
And, I went through that entire thing. However, it just like catapulted me into, like, I literally felt like that's the day I was born, and that's when I was alive at 14. So like, yeah, I'm 45, but people wonder why. You know me. People wonder why I'm like so jovial and so excited.
Yeah.
I'm still young, because I'm just like, when your childhood was stripped away from you, like, you hold on to that youthful feeling that you missed out on.
So I always say this, like, the biggest disservice I can do to myself is forget where I came from and forget how bad my prison life was. Do you have that at all? Do you think, because the vibe I got a little bit is and I've always say this, like, I feel like my life's house, like I'm playing with house money now. You know what I'm saying? I should have been dead 10 times. I should still be in prison. So this is all a bonus to me. So I can't get too upset over anything because like I shouldn't have any of this stuff. I kind of get that vibe from you a little bit, although I just want to know if that's true because you've made it so far the other way. Do you still keep that in the back of your mind?
Yeah, because I mean, I think there is it's a part of the story. You know, there are other people. I don't get mad. I'm happy, excuse me, that people didn't have to go through this. You know what I'm saying? But it's a part of the part of their story is growing up maybe in a better household and I use better because everybody's in a closet about something.
Yep.
Like we can look at the person that had the silver spoon. We can look at the people that had
They
the
all
money.
got their own issues.
We can live at the people who live maybe a nice middle class life and they never got bullied, but they still have something going on. So I definitely don't like to compare my struggle to other people's. So with that said, I utilize my experience to continue to propel me. And you know, when you were on my podcast, you said something that was like extremely profound, which is like perspective. It's like, and I like ever since that day that we had that conversation, I think that was always like with me, but it is literally at the top of my mind. Whether I'm negotiating a contract, like you really helped me. So thank you for that.
That's awesome. That makes me
It
happy.
was just like I could be here. Like Peter was in jail in solitary confinement. I'm like, wait a minute. Like it could be worse. No, that's not to diminish if you're going through something bad. Like I
Yeah.
definitely feel like you have to maneuver your way through the struggle. However, perspective. Like so where are we really? Like how much money do you have in the bank?
Yeah.
You have a husband that loves you. You have 2 incredible kids. You have an amazing support system around your house. I'm like, you're fine. Let's just like figure this out.
Yeah,
You know?
and that's how perspective is. So especially for you, like you could fumble 5 days in a row now, and as long as you can look at the big grand scheme of things and clearly what happened from there, as long as you have that perspective that like it's 10 times better than it always would be, like you can't lose in life.
Yeah, I'm always like big picture. It really kind of helped me. It really helps me navigate even with work. You know, like I was looking at Instagram the other day, and they said there was a meme that said something about 80% of your success at your job is your ability to deal with people. And I'm like, it's so true because skill and work ethic, in order for you to have gotten that job or gotten where you are in that job, you already had the skill or you've learned the skill. So it's dealing with people, you know. So for me, that's kind of how my life. When I say I have to like always say perspective, like it could be worse. It's most of the time because I'm dealing with some fucked up people.
Yeah, for sure. And and that's why I did so well. Like even in the car biz, when I was there, like I ran yards of 1,000 murderers. You know what I'm saying? So like to manage 12 salespeople, it's nothing to me. So like these other assistant sales managers were like, they couldn't control these 5 salespeople that always want to like, go get high in the bathrooms and dip out. And I'm like, dude, I'd do that with my eyes closed. You know what I'm saying? Like I used to run a yard of 1,000 lying dope fiend murderers. You know what I'm saying? Like this is a cakewalk.
Yeah.
So fitness is huge on mental health. Did you start transitioning into fitness after this when you were younger, or how did you kind of get over this, and what did you use as your scapegoat when you were living with your parents or grandparents?
So very interesting. So I ran track, and track and field was amazing. I was also a singer, so that was another outlet.
You can do it
for
all.
Me. I mean, you know, I'm just being silly. No, I mean, I would definitely consider myself a triple threat. I was a singer, a dancer, and an athlete. I'm not an actor.
Yeah.
I would be a horrible actor because I just love being in real time. Yeah. But I would be really good at crying scenes though, because I can conjure that up from really dark places.
Yep. I cry almost on a daily basis still.
Yeah, see, I love that. Like, we should literally invite men to cry more often.
I agree.
Attached to your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so I did all that. But when I got to college, I actually gained weight because I had 2 scholarship opportunities. I had track and field and I had academics. And my mom was like, take the academics because you can still run, but you don't have to rely on your body to keep the money.
Smart.
And so she was like, if you're gonna go to the Olympics, you'll go to the Olympics at a D3 school too. It's like it doesn't matter. You fast, you're fast. Yep. You know.
Still says USA on it, no matter what school you came from.
Exactly, because it was a dream of mine. But but my first semester, I was like, so a couple things happened. One, I was very focused on academics. I just like, to bury the lead. I graduated college with honors because I'm just like, if I'm gonna do something, I'm full out. I mean, you've done Insanity.
For
like
sure.
I'm full out like that in my life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I gained a lot of weight. I gained 50 pounds my first year in college. One, because I was really focused on academics. Two, because they gave you this thing called a food card.
Oh yeah.
And I grew up.
I've heard about these things.
The way I grew up, you couldn't just go to the cupboard and like
Eat
eat
whatever you
more
want.
food. Like you've been in my house, my cupboard's huge, right?
Yeah.
Like I didn't have that. We had like a little small little, shelf
For sure.
with some food on it. And it was always like I remember
Now your pantry is like literally a room.
my
Literally, it's like a
pantry's in
bedroom.
grocery store.
The only rule at the house is stay away from the lemonade.
Yeah, no lemonade.
That's an inside joke there.
I know. But so anyway, so I gained a lot of weight because I was like, I can eat whatever I want. I don't have to worry about money. I can, I'm focused on my studies. So what happened was my second year in college, I looked in the mirror one day and I was just like, oh my gosh, I went from 178 pound sprinter to 228 pounds. And I was just like, this is outrageous.
Yeah.
So I literally I started waking up and I would go to the gym every morning. I would get on the treadmill for 10 minutes and run. I would just run for 10 minutes a day. That was it because I knew I could run and I would leave the gym. And then eventually, I started being like, oh, I'm gonna go into the weight room. And the first day I walked to the weight room, I kind of like went in and then I was like, no, I'm just gonna go back on the treadmill and
squat
run
racks?
longer.
Yeah.
I like the elliptical. Like I'm
Yeah.
out here with the girls. Like, like I'm just
Yeah.
like, they're not gonna like look at me like, in
sure.
that way, like that I assume guys would look at me. But anyway, I ended up making my way into the weight room and then I obviously started loving it. Then I changed my major from communications to sports science. And so what happened was I loved dance. So we had to teach some sort of like group exercise. And so I went to the rec center manager and I was like, can I teach a dance class? And she was like, have you ever taught before? And I was like, no, but I can dance. Have you seen me at this party? Right? So she was like, absolutely, like, you can teach a class. Like, don't worry about it. They were very
Yeah.
supportive of the students. And then I went to the school newspaper. I was like, can I put an ad in the paper that I'm going to be teaching this? These people probably thought I was crazy because I'm just
Yeah.
like popping up. And they put this ad in the paper for me and I did like my little photo shoot,
Yeah.
the whole thing. And anyway, so this was like in 1997.
Okay.
And so, so then the day came, and I just arrived at the rec center like 10 minutes before class, and there were 90 people ready to take my class. And so the director of the rec center came up to me, and she was like, the room only holds 60 people, so you can turn 30 people away, or you can teach 2 classes back to back. And I was like, I'll teach 2 classes back to back. And she's like, but you never taught before. I'm like, I'm about to slay the game.
There you go.
So I went in and I taught my first dance class and it was a hit. I taught the second dance class.
The rest is history, huh?
And then I got on the schedule. Then I started teaching dance and I started teaching step aerobics and I started teaching boot camp, then kickboxing and cycling. And that's kind of like how my school was amazing. Like Rowan University is like all about their students and I will always gas them up.
For sure.
They were so amazing. I actually got the Distinguished Alumni Award a few years back.
Wow, that's
and
awesome.
I did like their ceremony. I did a speech for the graduation. It's such an amazing university for students. So I'm very thankful for them because they really, catapulted my love for fitness. And then my fitness director, like my direct boss, then took us to fitness conventions. So I would take like 8 classes a day, made some connections there, ended up being able to teach at this really big convention, which took me around the world, which that's when I moved to LA and I got a job immediately from all these connections. And then Beachbody saw my class and then they were like, hey, do you want to do a fitness
you're
program? And I
Equinox.
did dance and then and that's what it was. And so, and I got my contract in 2005 and so we're at 2023 and I'm still working with it's called Body now, BODI. And so here we are.
This is a great question. I heard Ed Millett ask Percy Miller, Master P, on his podcast. But and I could say the same example as you. I clearly know the bank account's not hurting. What keeps you going?
So
You could probably
This
chill and
is-
not work again and just chill and live the rest of your life on. But
Absolutely.
you go you're busier than me. You grind all day long. Like literally, what keeps you going?
yeah, and
with 2 kids.
It sounds like very I used to not want to like talk about that because it sounds like so. It can sound. It doesn't. It can sound so like, yeah, I got money, whatever. But that's not what it is because. And then I have to preface this because this can be annoying to people, but I have to have people understand it from this side. I made a point in my life from the experience that I had as a kid to value life, to like really enjoy the human experience. Believe it or not, that comes before money. I turn down jobs all the time. Yo, you would probably come over, not you, because you understand, but there would be people that would smack me upside the head if I'm like, nope, I'm turning down that contract for well into six figures. And they're like, why? I'm like, because it's not going to serve me. And this person it's going to be a nightmare. So like the foundation of why I do things and why I love things and the projects I work for is purely for the sake of passion, being able to change people's lives, and how's it going to benefit and maximize the love and the connection I have with my family, period. And so, and that's why I keep working. That is literally, I'm like, I'm having a good ass time. You know, I have a really great, my team is fantastic. And so why not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So why am I gonna stop working? Like I have all this fuel, all this life experience, all these amazing people around me. I'm still learning. There are people like Mel Robbins and Shaun Stevenson and I mean there's countless amount of people that I get to interact and you know what I mean? That I get to and Mario, Cannon, there's like I'm meeting people all the time, every day, that are like completely changing my life. I'm learning things from. I get to talk to them. I'm like, why am I going to stop doing this? You know, just because I have money in the bank?
Yeah.
Well, it's the same way when people look at me and they say, you don't need to work out. I'm like, so I can stop and you think I'm going to look like this
Yeah.
forever by not doing anything? And it's the same thing when it comes to with your job. It's like, people, like, yeah, it's very well possible for me to stop working and have money in the bank, right, and be fine. But what happens to that money? Yeah, I'll invest it, but what's going to happen to that money? It's going to be like
draining
fuel in the tank.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why am I, like, I'm not driving around on an empty tank. Why am I going to empty that part of my life as well? Especially when what I'm doing to keep my finances strong is actually enhancing my life. And most importantly, because of my transparency, I'm helping maybe one person a day.
At least, but for sure.
But you know,
that's the minimum. That's the goal. At least one. You know what I'm saying? As long as it's at least one, you're doing
person
good.
a day.
Yeah. I'm just fascinated by your story, man. Like I don't like to even know too much of these conversations or have too much because I like to have it be organic and stuff on here and we know each other. But I'm like, I'm just fascinated that like you had a childhood like that and you still got to where you are. And it's proof anyone out there that's struggling right now. I mean, to grow up with a childhood like that and not end up where I ended up, you know, and then to be the person you are and then a leader and now using your message to help people is just like, bro, I commend you. And it's inspirational to me too, you know what I'm saying? Because like a lot of people shoot to get to where you are now, you know what I'm saying? And like I said, that you don't have an off button and clearly it's because you want to help people, you know what I'm saying?
You know, Robin Roberts once said, I think she, make your mess your message. And she also has a book called Everybody Has Something. And I just think it's like really fascinating that we all have mess and we all can create a message from it that can help other people. And we're all going through something. I actually have a friend who grew up money, like parents had planes, and he is like literally, he's like my brother, like a spectacular, incredible guy. Somebody you would look at, does really well for himself, like has the dopest house, like the dopest cars. Like he's just wonderful all the way around and great and like, you know, happy financially or whatever. Married, very happy in his marriage. But he said to me once, he was like, yeah, I had all of that stuff, but I never knew how to deal with turmoil. So like so that's what I'm saying. Like I have been through a lot. Like I have, but it's the same. I don't want to say it's the same. Like obviously sexual abuse and sexual assault is a completely different thing. My whole point is like as a human, like whether you are well off or whether you came from whatever, there's always a lesson to be learned, you know? And so, I mean, I'm not gonna get in the whole politics thing because there's a lot of different variables to that. But like foundationally, the humans that we are, we all going through some shit. And so if everybody got into a room and connected through their shit, like people would be like, oh hell, like we actually can hold hands and be like on the same playing field and really want to help each other out, you know?
Because there's a lot of people that are listening to this right now that are probably literally going through the exact same thing as you or going through some stuff like me and thinks that they're alone and think that like there's no way out because no one's been through this. We've all been through the same stuff. Like the rich people got their own set of problems. You know what I'm saying? No matter who you are, how much money you have, or whether you're spoon-fed and you've never even had to work a day in your life, they have their own set of problems. And the reason that us that have been through stuff have an advantage on the rest of the world is just like you said. That rich guy, once a little turmoil hits, he has no idea how to deal with that stuff.
Yeah.
Besides call daddy or whatever it is. And he has literally no clue how to deal with the real world because they've lived such a sheltered life. So,
and the reason why, and you know, I don't know how, I mean, we kind of chatted on my podcast about it. I don't know how your relationship, I do kind of know how your relationship was with your parents, but a lot of these people who do have money, and I'll talk about men specifically because I'm a man. You know, I have a lot of females in my community, and I learned so much from them, and it's really great back and forth. They actually help me a lot with female relationships and stuff. But I'm a man, so I'll talk specifically to men. We sometimes feel like money is power, but we have zero emotional strength, zero emotional control. And so, yeah, like when shit hits the fan because you've like hidden from your emotions for so long, you don't know how to deal with that. That's why when you talk about crying, I'm like, absolutely. I actually have a really good friend of mine. You know Bubba, right? The tattooer, Bubba. Like, man, I text him every day. I think I tell this guy, I love him, and he always texts me back, I love you more.
Yeah.
And we have this pact. I'm like, if you need me at 3 a.m., and my husband knows, I'm like, if Bubba texts me at 3 a.m.,
it's the only one?
I'm out. Well, I mean, he's the only one that, you know, we agreed to it. I would do it for you too.
Of course.
Of course, absolutely. But I tell him, I'm like, and you know, and it's just really cool because he's, you know, a heterosexual guy and I'm gay. But we just have, like, he's just, like, open to being like, yeah, like, we talk about emotional shit to not, you know, because you may not be able to talk about it to anybody else so he feels comfortable and vice versa.
Yeah.
And so I think that is also your most valuable currency. There's time, because time moves forward. You know what I mean? We're running out of time.
For
not
sure.
to sound negative.
No.
But we're all going to die one day.
Yep.
So maximize your time. And like manage your emotions, which means help yourself connect to yourself a little better.
That's great. I got another question for you. So I felt, I don't even know the right word, but just like gypped by God and like ripped off in life. And I felt like I was shorted just by dealing with what I had been through. Clearly you got over that. And then once I like found God again, I realized like I was honestly grateful for the bad stuff that happened to me in my life. How much of yours do you feel grateful for it, and are you there yet? Or do you just feel like, are you a little resentful at what happened, but you just moved past it? Or can you actually look at it now today, honestly look at me and say that you're grateful for what happened to you?
I don't know if I would say I'm grateful for it.
For sure.
Because I just don't want anybody out there to think that it's okay that happened.
Absolutely.
But I definitely have to be like super honest when it comes to religion. First of all, I love that people are religious. I mean, I can go into the book, you know what I mean? I can go into Proverbs and spit out the most. But I've definitely become less, I wouldn't consider myself a Christian anymore.
Okay.
I consider myself like, I just think that there's so many religions in the world as I've gotten older. There's, you know, first of all, even within Christian, there's Pentecostal, there's Baptist, there's non-denominational, there's evangelical, there's all this. Then you have Muslim, you have Buddhist, you have all these different religions. So for me, I asked my grandmother a very important question when I was 16, and this happened after I was sexually abused. So I said, you know, I was in ninth grade, and we were in history class, and so we were learning about all the types of different religions and stuff. And so I went home to my grandmother. I was like, okay, so you know how you say we have to accept Jesus Christ as our personal savior to go to heaven? And, you know, we started talking about heaven and, like, you know, the the gates are going to open and it's going to be streets of gold and you're going to see everyone who's passed away. And then there's hell. And it's like, you're going to burn in fire and brimstone forever and ever and ever. I'm like, so I'm looking at these two contrasting ideas. And I'm like, but I'm a good ass person. So just because like I don't do it this way, especially when there's many, many other religions, so like I'm going to hell. So I say to her, I said, Mama, so let's talk about a 6-year-old boy who studies Buddhism. Like that's the only thing he knew. And he gets older and he's just literally like, that is his religion. He knows nothing about Christianity. Like, it would be like me knowing nothing about that language and wanting me to change to their ideology. I was like, is he still going to hell? And she was like, yeah. And that's when I was just like, I can't get behind it. I can't get behind it because I'm like, so anyway, I love that people are Christian. I love that people are Buddhist. I love people that are Jehovah's Witness. I love that people are Seventh-day Adventists. I love it all. I think religion keeps people in a headspace for the most part,
For sure.
you know,
For sure.
of whatever, like maybe being a good human.
Of course. Yep.
But for me, I had to like snowball all of the greatness that I found in my lessons of traveling the world. I lived in Istanbul, Turkey. Man. Like,
Unreal. Yeah.
it gets unreal. I'm literally like dropped into this like different way of life. You know, I spent a lot of time in Germany. I've lived in Switzerland. So I've lived in a lot of different places. And so for me, I just snowball all of this goodness that I found. And at the end of the day, our solar system is moving around the Milky Way galaxy at speeds that you can never imagine. And one day the sun is going to die too. So for me, I'm like, what is the higher being? What is really the higher being? I'm like, I don't know. I know I'm not the highest being. I know when you compare your individual body and my individual body to the vast area that we call our universe, and the universe is expanding even at this moment, we ain't shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we are the shit,
For sure.
but we ain't shit. Like
Yeah.
we're not even like a grain of sand compared to this.
Yep.
So like there's no way I'm gonna either like ridicule somebody for not being religious or being religious. I'm like, yo, choose your path. Like if this is making your life really great, but what makes every time before I take off on a plane, I pray to a higher being. When I leave my family, you know, before I go on stage, before I perform, for my friends, like if they need, like I still pray, like I'll pray over food, like we can do it all. But I just don't pray to that one particular God. But in that entire rant that I gave, none of that had anything to do with my sexual abuse, because I separated that, because I felt like if I said God made this happen, there's no such thing as God, then I'm holding on to negativity, and I'm literally trying to connect something that I feel, which is religion. I'm hoping, if you really look at the Bible, to create happiness and greatness for people and like to live fair, and you got the 10 Commandments. I'm gonna try to attach a negative thing to that. I'm like, if I do that, then this is always gonna be negative, and that's always gonna be negative. So I'm like, I have to separate these two. That's what happened over there.
Yep.
My religious and spirituality happened over here. This got taken care of by therapy for 7 years in a row. And this got taken care of by experience that either God or the universe granted me to have this experience, or maybe it was just that I manifested greatness to myself. I don't know, but I know I'm not the highest being, and I know that I'm just gonna be grateful for the fact that I'm here.
That's right. Real quick, can you tell the viewers, because a lot of people are up in the air about therapy and don't know if it works or not. I'm a believer and fan of therapy. What does therapy actually teach you, and what are the great benefits to people that are on the fence about getting therapy?
That's a really great question. So the first thing I'll say is there are different types of therapy. When I talk about mental health therapy, it's talk therapy. I actually enjoy going into a room with my therapist and dumping all of my shit on the table.
Why do I see that?
I love it. I'm like, this is great. And you know, this will be a long answer, but I'm sorry.
No, we're good.
So I literally walk in there and I'm like, all right, here's my table. The table is empty today. I'm gonna dump all this stuff out. But here's what's great about it. Once I dump out all of that stuff to someone who has zero emotional attachment to me, it's not like I'm talking to my husband or a friend who, like, if I tell you something like, yeah, you can help me, but you actually really care about me, right? So like you're coming with some emotional attachment to that. In therapy, like your therapist is looking at this from the outside in, it's like, cool, put it on the table. But what happens is great. You dump all this stuff out and you start picking stuff apart and you're like, oh, this doesn't matter. This is just filler. Like I talk about in my book, it's never the thing, it's the thing. Like if me and my husband are arguing about, who forgot to change the oil in the car, we have a Tesla, so we're not really doing it. But like, let's say we start arguing about that. At the end of the day, actually, we have a Nissan too. But at the end of the day, we're not arguing about the oil. We're probably arguing because somebody didn't get attention. We didn't have enough intimacy. You didn't pay, like, it's never the thing, it's the thing. And so that's what happens in therapy. All of the stuff that you're going through in your life, you think that you are stressed because of this or work or from that. And you'll find out it's from something deeper in your childhood. It's like it's a way for you to just like dig a little deeper and get to the foundational reason of why you may feel sad or why you may feel heavy or why you may have anxiety. So that's one thing I like to say, to tell people, don't be afraid, because you're going into a place where someone is literally not judging you, and you can say, a good therapist
say whatever you
is
want.
going to say whatever. Man, the stuff I tell my therapist, I'm like, I live my best life in that room. I'm like, this is like great, right? Now, mind you, I've had it wasn't that easy when I went to therapy at first, but I'm just letting people know.
Yeah.
So second thing I'll say is not everybody benefits from talk therapy, right? So they have other therapy things where you can like now text, you can do it because you might not be comfortable. Some people meditate. Some people go on retreats and share with other people. There's obviously 12-step helps a lot of people. So the point is that I'm trying to say is find out what type of therapy works for you.
Yep.
Just don't bottle it inside, because all the stuff that's going on in your life, you need help, and it's okay that you need help and you don't have to go at it alone.
I love that. One little last thing here, and I'm bummed out. We've been going for like 45 minutes. I'm like, we're for sure doing round two to get in the whole life, dude. I just love flowing with you, bro.
Anytime I do a podcast, I'm like, oh my God, they don't have enough time.
I'm like, damn, I don't want to end. I want this thing to end. But the last thing, next person trying to make the next change in life, someone is struggling right now. What is your best piece of advice that you can give to people right now?
So if you're a person that's struggling right now, don't look at the big goal, because the big goal can really stress you out. Ask yourself, what can I do today that's going to make myself feel better? The tangible result is to feel better. And when you find out what that is, take action on it. Now, I'm not going to tell you to take action every single day, because if I tell you to do that, you might get overwhelmed. Just like with fitness, maybe you need to start working out one day a week. I always say leave yourself wanting more. And if you leave yourself wanting more, you'll be able to sit into that experience that you just had, and you'll be able to take action a little bit better, and you'll be able to enjoy it. You'll be able to masticate it and figure out what it is that you want to do next. Goals are great. Big picture can really unmotivate you. So one step at a time, and I promise you will make progress.
And you can tie perspective into that too.
Yes, very much so.
If you look at your little tiny goals on the big picture thing, they're so small you won't think that you're doing anything, but you're actually making a trek towards your goal every day.
I was going to say this, but it's so, it's just like such a normal thing to say, I would say. But one day I was running outside, and I would get to the same spot on my run, and I felt the same way every time I got there, because I started running fast or whatever. And so it was just like, it was kind of like a medium-sized incline, and it was always this one light post that I wanted to get to, and I'm like, oh, this part of my journey like sucks, because I just want to get up there before whatever. So at one point when that incline started, instead of looking at the pole, I looked at my feet.
Perfect.
And I just was looking at my feet. I'm like, the power of one step. I got to that what seemed faster. It may have been slower, it may have been faster. But the thing is, I didn't stress about the end game. I just connected to the present moment, and it made it so much better.
Dude, I love that. Thank you guys for tuning in to Roll Call with Chappy again. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, leave me a review on Apple, Spotify, and Shaun, please tell them how to find all your stuff, Instagram and all that stuff. And dude, thank you again for this. And we're definitely doing round 2 ASAP.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you guys for listening this long. But if you want to find me, you can go to ShaunTLife.com, or you can find me on all social media platforms, SHAUNT, Shaun T. And I have a link in my bio where you can get my workouts, you can get my wine night after dark, which is a little risque. You can get my motivation. You can join I have a really incredible fitness group called Dig Deeper Nation, where everything is about fitness and you are in a challenge 365 days a year.
There we go. Thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you again, man. Have an awesome week, guys.